All right, so we're doing a modification here. The original design was to have just that piece of 3/4 inch plywood hinged across the front because I couldn't come up with anything better. But realized after the little woman put the cushion on here and we were sitting on it, it wasn't comfortable because you kind of were like sliding out of the seat with the bottom cushion being flat. So to experiment, I put some stuff underneath the front here, raising up the front edge. That's 2x4 and a piece of 3/4, whatever that is. It's what, inch and a half, 2.25 inches, I guess. And then we're flat in the back. So that wedge shape right there is just about right for comfort. So I didn't design the seat with that angle because we need it when this is opened up. When this piece of plywood is opened up, it needs to be flat because it's a bed. Then I later realized I can make the flip part flat on the bottom, which will end up being the top when it's open, and angled on the top, which will be underneath when it's open. So that's what we're doing today, and that's what I bought the wood for. And I thought I was going to use 2 layers of the 1/2 inch, and I'm going to build this thing kind of like an airplane wing with ribs in it. But then I realized I've already got this piece of 3/4. I can just put the 1/2 inch on top of it. And so the reason why I went with 2 sheets and what was on my mind at the time was I was going to go with 2 pieces of 3/8 plywood, and that would be 3/4 of an inch thick in the back where they're connected together. But then I never really liked the idea because where I connect them together, they're going to be flat, and then it's going to change from flat to the angle. And it occurred to me last night that all I got to do is bevel the end, and that takes care of that. Because I was thinking about putting a piece of, like some of the airplane models I put together, there was a tapered piece of wood at the trailing edge of the wing, and the 2 pieces of sheet plywood were on top of that tapered piece. So that's kind of what I was thinking, but I can do it without that tapered piece just by tapering the pieces of wood. So now that I've realized that, I can use this piece of 3/4 and 1 piece of this is 1/2. I went to buy 3/8. And this was cheaper. 1/2 inch of this stuff, sanded ply they call it, was $10 cheaper per sheet than the 3/8 CDX. Because I guess this is imported from the rainforests of South America. I don't know where it comes from. Does it say made in Ecuador? Yep, comes from the rainforest. So I'm contributing to the depletion of the rainforest today. So anyway, I need to get some more wood. I realized last night that I need a 2x4 to run the full length of this for the spacer that's going to be on the front, and I'm going to need pieces of wood for the ribs, which I guess I could use 3/4 inch plywood for the ribs. And I'm going to brad nail this thing together with glue. So, I mean, I guess that'll work. I don't know. I would rather use pieces of solid pine for the ribs. It'll take a nail better. What we're doing here, this is going to be the base for the sofa bottom. This is the part that's going to flip over. And it's not going to have quite this steep of an angle. I kind of crudely drew this out. I was having difficulty trying to adjust the font size of the dimensions, but it's going to be 3¼ inches tall here and 3/4 of an inch tall there. And the reason why I drew this out was to calculate these angles for me. This piece of 3/4 inch, get something to point with here. this is the 3/4 inch plywood that this piece right here, that's going to be that side of it. So I needed to know, I want to bevel the end of this piece of 3/4 inch plywood. Kind of difficult to tell. I gotta go double check. There's a double line down here. I think that's part of this dimension. But I need a bevel from here to here, which is 5 3/16 of an inch. And that'll give me a 1/4 inch thick piece of wood at the tip. This 3/4 inch plywood, I'll take a 1/2 of an inch off from this to nothing and create that angle, and that will join to the 1/2 inch piece of plywood that's right there. Well, I had to fix this drawing. It was messing with my head too much. I removed that rogue line and then I copied this block up here, and it's funny how it doesn't look like they're the same size, but I just double checked and they are. So this is going to have a 5-degree angle cut at the top, and its high side should be 1.997 and its low side should be 1.858. And the length of that bevel should be 5 3/16. The overall thickness over here is going to be 3/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch plywood plus the 1/4 inch left there. All right, let's get started. Well, we're trying different things here, so you can see how warped that piece of plywood is. So when I pull this down, you can see it takes the bow out, or enough of it for me to work with. So if I put one screw here and over there, then I just have to watch out where I'm cutting it. I don't cut it in the area of that screw. There's already a hole down there. Let's see if I can do this. All right, so I got this attached, and that's giving us something to work with here on this side. This is the side we're going to trim off. Now I'm looking for raising this side 1.997, and I'm not super anal retentive. Well, I guess I am, but using these decimals like this is just for a matter of convenience, because that's the size that it came out to give me this. So my router table is 1/4 inch thick aluminum, so I'm thinking that this is going to have to be a 1/4 inch taller. So I did the math. So now if I cut this piece of wood, that's ultimately going to be this size. If I cut it to that size, it ought to give me what I'm looking for in an angle. Yeah, how straight is it this way? Where's my square? I lost my square. I think this thing's pretty straight. There's a little bit of a warp that way as well, but very minimal. Okay, so I'm just realizing something. This is going to need a 5-degree cut on it too, in order to meet the straight line here. I kind of messed up here. Well, I did mess up, but it's not something I can't recover from. So I was shooting for 2¼ inches height on this right here. And I started out bigger. We're like 2 9/16. And so the goof that I made was I compensated for a 1/4 inch thick piece of aluminum that this needed to be a 1/4 inch taller, but we're also a 1/2 inch higher than where this is going to be because we haven't cut it yet. So that needs to be a 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch higher than the finished size. The 1/2 inch that's here and the 1/4 inch that's there. But I can recover from that by just moving this over to where this point underneath here on this piece of plywood is 2 3/4 inches above the table saw, and then we'll have our proper angle on this piece of wood. All right, we got our angle set. Gosh, that was kind of complicated. So we want this side 2½ inches higher than that side. But in order to do that, we got to go 2 3/4 inch higher because we're sitting on a piece of 1/4 inch aluminum on this side. So when I push down on this now, because this has got a little bit of a warp to it, we're measuring 2 3/4 inches to the bottom. Hey, check out the finger, by the way. We're using just a Band-Aid now. All right, so we're 2 3/4 inch here, which means it really is 2½ inches higher than the aluminum. And when you get all that together, this 5-degree cut matches this, and the bottom matches on the table saw. So that's a little sanity check I got there. So now I could set my router bit up 1/4 inch, and I'll be able to cut off that angle that I need. But I can't cut off all the wood on this or this will drop. I've got to leave a little like 1-inch piece here and there every foot or so to support this and remove all the rest of the wood. And once I get all the rest of the wood, I can come back with a I don't know what, and I'll trim those little pieces out of there. Right? Let's see if I can do this, man. This is going to take 2 people to manipulate this thing back and forth over my router bit that's going to be sticking through that hole. All right, we just finished with the router, and it looks great to me. I mean, there's probably a couple of voids here and there, but now we're going to hit it with the belt sander and take off all the high spots. Well, I think it looks great, man. I mean, it ain't perfect, but it's just better than I thought it was going to be. Had a little faux pas here. I ran the table saw down it to trim this off and kind of got away from here at the beginning. But I'm going to flip this thing over now and see how it sits on the table saw as a flat surface. Yeah, check it out, man. Just like the drawing. So it is stiff enough that it needs no support at all, other than I'm going to make little wedges, one for each side to cap it off, and the edges do need a support, but the middle does not. So that's great. So I think the way I'm going to build this thing, I'll assemble the 2x4 to one of the halves with glue and screws first, Then I'll pre-drill the other side for screws along the 2x4 and on these wedges on the sides. And then right about here, I guess, I'll pre-drill one of these sides for screws. And I don't have an area big enough that's flat to build this on to know that I've got this thing made straight. So when it comes time to glue in the second half, I'll do it in the bus on the sofa seat base, and I'll use that for my straight edge. And you know what? It's almost 4 o'clock now on Sunday evening, and I think I got enough steam. I can finish this thing today, so the glue is drying. Just have to think about, I think I want the final install in the bus with this in its upright position in its place. Oh, I can't do that because I want to have this end toward the outside. Even though I'm going to put screws here, I want to put clamps along the edge. So I have to have this in there backwards. So I guess it doesn't matter how I put it. No matter which way I do it, it's going to be all right. Because just in case the platform, how it sits in the bus, it's got a little bit of a twist to it. I was hoping to get this to match it, but I can't do that. So let's get rocking and rolling. All right, man. It's about 6 o'clock in the evening, Sunday. And I'm beat, man. I don't know if I can do much more. Jesus. So I got this thing built. I built it on the table saw. Then I brought it in here to make sure it was flat. And it looks like it's flat across the back as best as I can tell. Had a little bit of a bow here. So I put these 2 clamps and clamped it to the base. It's backwards right now, but it's the only way I can put it on there because of all these clamps. So I did not install the sides triangular pieces because I was fighting too many things here trying to get the warp out of this by clamping it to the table saw and putting shims under the low spots and clamping down the tight spots and then putting the screws in. And yeah, it was kind of hectic, but it's in there and it's really, really straight, and I'm sure it's straight enough for what I want to do. It's just that front edge back there, when this is spun around, that's going to have a piano hinge on it to the front of the base, and it's got to be pretty straight, right? So